I did not jump out of my body all the time, to my recollection, the only time that I remember doing it. But at a pretty young age, if you can see spirit guides and you can hear them, the word weird starts to get pretty relative, right? And when you're talking to people who don't have bodies anymore, but they were on the earth at one point, things start to be less and less weird.
All right, welcome to the New Age Human Podcast. I'm your host, John Anastacio, and today we're talking with Jill K. Thomas, who's a certified hypnotherapist, an intuitive coach, and a clairvoyant. It's really cool because we actually go into some childhood experiences that will blow your mind and leave you wondering, okay, that was weird. Now what? So yeah, in the episode, we do talk about that, and we also speak on her experiences as a clairvoyant, like I just said, hint, hint, the concept of parallel lives, and tips on shifting into a more prosperity mindset. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur, especially in the metaphysical space, the woo-woo zone, you'll appreciate this episode. Now, if you want to support the show, you can always go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. It helps out the show a lot and get more reach. So I appreciate it if you do that. Now, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you on. I love the subject matter of hypnotherapy, clairvoyance, and all the clairs. But I want to know, for the audience, I'm sure they're wondering, like, how did you get there as a clairvoyant or as someone that talks about like hypnotherapy? Like, what was your, I guess briefly, your journey into that?
Yeah. Well, there's two different journeys. The psychic stuff, I've always been intuitive. Ever since I was a little kid, I had an out-of-body experience. It's not the near-death story that you've heard, I'm sure, a million times. This is when I consciously jumped out of my body because I was having a bad experience. I was in a fight with my parents, right? I was like, I don't want to be around these people anymore. So peace out. Whatever I thought I was going to sign up for, I don't want to do it anymore. And I remember the spirit guide that I encountered, I said, I can't do this. Basically, here's the keys. Here's the car. I'm turning it back over to the bank. I don't want it. And he said, you can't do that because your mom would freak out. Your brother needs you. I'll tell you what, Spirit actually made a deal with me. If you go back in, jump back in, I will make it so that you can see spirit guides and you're going to be able to hear them. And you'll be able to see yours and other people's. And I'm like, okay. And then you'll know that you're not alone. So ever since I was a little kid, I had seen spirit guides. Now, being able to see spirit guides and being able to do a good psychic reading are two different things. I went to school to learn how to do the second one because up until then I was getting a lot of random information, but the person in front of me might want to know about something very specific, like their job. And I'm like, oh, I'm seeing a car. I'm seeing you going out to dinner with a girlfriend. Like, spirit is like, no. The guy's like, I want to know about, should I be dating Bob or Bill? Right? That kind of thing. Now the hypnotherapy actually came later in life. When I was in high school, they had a grad night, one of those all-night parties, and Marshall Silver, who's kind of a famous hypnotherapist or hypnotist, gave a presentation, and I watched the most popular kids in school do some batshit crazy things, and I was like, I want in. That's the Matrix. I want. It's like a Jedi mind trick. I want to learn that, right? And it turns out it's not a Jedi mind trick. Anybody can do it. But that's how I started learning hypnotherapy. And way before I was ever certified and could start seeing clients, I was already learning it because I'd read every book and I watch every VHS. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about with those, right? Other people don't know. What is that? That's not that shiny silvery disc thing. No, it's not. Just to let you know, it's not. But yeah, I could have taught that class by the time I actually took it when I was 30. But that's really where I started.
Wow. So reeling it back, you had an out-of-body experience, an OBE, and did you do that often as a kid? And then did it get just too weird, or like what made you get fed up?
I was having trauma. My family was not the most functional. I'm sure everybody has heard this story before, and I will spare you the details. But I jumped out of my body because I was like, I just can't handle these people. These people are nuts. I'm using child terms, right? But a 2-year-old understands the concept of crazy pretty well. I will say that. I did not jump out of my body all the time. That was to my recollection, the only time that I remember doing it. But at a pretty young age, if you can see spirit guides and you can hear them, the word weird starts to get pretty relative, right? Because your concept of weird gets changed quite a bit when you're seeing things that other people can't, and when you're talking to people who don't have bodies anymore, but they were on the earth at one point. Things start to be less and less weird, if that makes sense.
And were you jumping out of your body like like mid stride, or was it when you went to sleep? I'm thinking like you're like, these people are crazy and you're just watching your family go nuts, and then like you just leave your body. Like when do you leave your body?
Yeah, my father was physically abusive, and I was
Okay.
laying in bed after a particularly bad physically abusive incident, and I was physically in pain,
Mm,
bruises from what had happened. And I'm like, I know I said I would do this, but I don't want to. So I kind of just spontaneously jumped out and said, here you go. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it.
wow.
But really when the being, and I can't say which one it was, approached me and talked to me about it. And he said, it will get better. And it did. As soon as my brother got a little bit older, he and I are fairly close in age. My parents calmed down a bit, and it was not as bad, but it was never good.
Okay. And I'm sorry to hear that. And
That's okay.
it's not surprising to see people with gifts and extraordinary talents come about those talents and gifts after traumatic experiences. It's like the beginning story of every like Marvel hero, right?
Oh, we know. And I have a theory on that, and I might be wrong, but my theory is that every child is intuitive, but when you're having to determine if it's safe to walk across a room, you're going to turn that gift on full blast and keep it on. And unfortunately, that's where the word sensitive comes into play, when I hate that word because it's really intuitive, right? Person's intuition gets turned up to full blast because they need to understand if they're safe in their environment, because when they were a kid, they weren't. And unfortunately, later on in life, this can become anxiety, because now you're going to the grocery store and you're feeling, especially around the holidays, oh my God. And you're feeling everybody's anxiety. They're worried about money. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much food costs now. And you're picking up everybody's fertilizer and thinking it's yours. And that can be part of what happens. My theory is that that's a big part of what general anxiety disorder is, but I'm not a doctor, so don't take that as medical advice.
And you're a human and you've lived a life and you're still living.
Yes. That's the plan. Yes, for a long time. I got
like I gotta
I'm eating
fix
my
what
veggies. I'm eating my veggies.
But yeah, it's interesting, and I like your perspective, and I'm pretty sure you're not alone in that, because I feel the same for you. My sensitivity turned on when I was around 2 or 3, when my parents divorced, and then I went from inner city New York to the suburbs of Connecticut around 4 or 5. So major difference,
Wow,
like night and day.
Yeah.
So culture wise, and then like where's the parents? Where am I staying? Blah blah blah. So I definitely feel you there, but I didn't go through the same experience as you, and I did not go out of my body as often as you did. But going back to going out of your body, because I think that's fascinating. And I'm sure people are wondering, what do the spirit guides look like? How did you identify them? Was it a relationship that built over time? Trust, like all that. What is that? What's going on there?
So sometimes when I see a client, sometimes the spirit guide will show themselves to me in a certain way because it has a meaning to that client. So I'll give you an example of something I see a lot. Whenever I see a Samoan guide, every once in a while I see basically a rock, right, appear in front of me. It tells me something about that person. Typically, that person has some Samoan ancestry. I almost always see a Samoan guide with a Samoan person with Samoan ancestry somewhere. But it also tells me that they've had a rough life, because Samoan guides very much look and present themselves like the rock in a lot of ways, very solid, very powerful, and they want the person to feel that warrior energy around them all the time. So if somebody's had a rough life and I see a Samoan guide, God, if I see 2, I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry you had a rough life. But that says something to me. But a lot of times they're just colors. A lot of times they're not necessarily male or female. Sometimes it sees almost androgynous. Occasionally it looks like an alien. When I see that, it's because the person should know that they have alien ancestry. They're from maybe they're not from around here. Right.
Yeah.
They're
Love it.
from the Pleiades, they're from Sirius, but sometimes they will present themselves the way not necessarily the way they are, but because if I tell the client what I see, it means something to them that's important for them, if that makes sense.
Right. And as my coffee kicks in, I'm guessing that you see other people's spirit guides, and that's how you communicate and you help bridge that connection.
Yeah.
Right?
And I will tell you, and I think most mediums would say the same thing, that I have gotten good at turning it off, so that unless the said person has booked a sacred appointment and I have been given permission by the mere fact the person booked an appointment, they don't really, it's hard to get my attention unless I have permission. Because I'm not going to the grocery store and want to snoop at all these people that are in line. It's not my business. And I don't want to do that. Not only that, it's private. Everybody's privacy. Everybody's entitled to their privacy. But yeah, I do see the guides around. And up until I was 7 or 8, I didn't realize other people just didn't see this stuff. I'll see spirit guides occasionally. I'll see dead grannies. Dead grannies are really actually not that hard to see. Because they've been dead for a while, right? If somebody just died on Thursday, they haven't quite figured out how to be real present to the other person as in a way that somebody like me could see. But
interesting.
But a granny's been on the other side for a while. She's had some practice.
So this started when you were younger. Did you go into a traditional life career and then move into this? Can you briefly share that journey?
Yes, I had a very, very traditional corporate job. At some point, I was a car insurance agent. So I sold software. I worked in the vitamin industry for a long time on this manufacturing side. So I would look at products and figure out how to market them to clients, or figure out the kinds of things people wanted to buy. And we would help create products for that. So I had a very, very corporate job. And I really think a lot of the next batch of healers are coming from that corporate world, which is why I have a passion for helping people bridge that gap, because I think a lot of them sitting in corporate America in a cubicle right now are thinking, I can't possibly be an astrologer, even though I do it on the side and I have so much fun with it, because I come from Google or Allstate or, something very, very conventional. But I really got to tell you that is not the case. You can absolutely use those corporate marketing skills, those people skills, the fact that you seem normal, right? and become anything you want to do, no matter how weird and woo-woo it really is.
Yeah, and it does sound like you're describing the waves of people, right? You have the pioneers that slept outside, went camping, and grew their hair past their elbows. And then you have the millennials that had them as grandparents or parents and getting out of those corporate careers and having this seem just a new world collide with the old and wanting nothing with it. I'm, I guess, considered an elder millennial, right? And so I feel you where you're coming from, where you have that passion to help people get out of their career and into something more fulfilling. What was there a trigger point, a day you remember when you left that world and went into the world of what you're doing now?
So I didn't just leave that world. I bridged. And I will tell you, every time, those of you who've gone to a psychic and had the psychic say, hey, you should start a business doing this yourself. The spirit doesn't mean right now. Spirit means work your way over there, because spirit doesn't want you having to live in your car. Okay. Take your corporate job money, get your training, start your business, your side hustle. We can all use a side hustle right now. I mean, economy is kind of going to be dumpster fire status here pretty quick. And it is always wise to work your way over there. So I didn't just one day leave. At one point, I did get laid off. I spent a couple of years trying to find another job. I don't know if you guys remember 2007, way back then, there weren't a lot of jobs for people like me in sales. So I was in the state of California. As long as you are honest about your earnings at the time, you were able to keep your business as long as you didn't increase your hours and you didn't, and you reported every penny, which I did. I was completely honest. IRS, I was completely honest. I really was, actually.
For the record?
For the record, I really was completely honest. But eventually I just gave up trying to find a job, and my business started to really grow after that. Because then I was able to put in the hours. I'm like, I'm not even looking anymore, and I'm not collecting unemployment. Now I can say I'm working 40 hours a week and start really doing it.
That's awesome. Let's get into a cool subject matter that I think would be fascinating, which is past lives and parallel lives. I'm familiar with parallel lives, but very few times do I hear people talking about it. So what are your thoughts on those subjects?
I started researching parallel lives because I was doing past life regression therapy. I don't know how many times somebody would come, we do a past life, quote, past life. And the person would say that they were 15 in 1995, and I look at the person and I go, okay, wait, this person's age doesn't matter. They're not 15 and 19. This is a parallel life, right? So, and at first I thought, this is crazy, right? This can't be a thing, because now past lives, no, that's a thing. But you start to examine your beliefs and you realize, okay, I believe that a virgin had a kid. I believe that I've been a lot of different people over lifetime. How is parallel life, thinking that that is a thing, how is that really that different, right? You realize, okay, if my soul can reincarnate over and over again, why can't it reincarnate into 5 different versions of me at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So parallel lives is really the idea that everybody, and I would say every person I've seen in my office has had 5 or 6 of these, at least. Probably more, but that's usually what comes up when we're doing the regression. You might be a 13-year-old boy in Arkansas. You might be a 75-year-old woman in Michigan. You might be all of those things at the same time, having different experiences, gaining different knowledge. Imagine you're an advanced soul, and I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that it takes a level of spiritual maturity on the part of the soul to be able to do more than one lifetime at the same time.
Especially multiple genders, as you were describing.
Hello, yeah, yeah, absolutely. So imagine that. And you want to learn 75 things. You want to experience 75 different things. Well, you can't in one lifetime. 75, that's a lot, right? Maybe I'll just do 30 over here, 15 over here.
Yeah.
Because the last 10 are kind of hard. Let's just confine that to one. Let's just give this one guy 10, right? And learn and grow that way with all of that extra experience all at the same time. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
That reminds me of that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I liked that movie. That was great. You should
and
watch
that can hurt your head if you're not used to talking or thinking about that. I've had a response of, I love that movie. And I had the response of, I had to walk away from it because,
really,
head explosion emoji, right? And I'm just like, I'll watch it again. Like,
there are some really funny parts of that movie. I'm just thinking of one in particular that I will not describe because it's going on YouTube, but you all who are seeing it are already picturing this one particular scene. Yes.
Yeah. And for people that didn't see that movie, it's pretty much exactly the same thing. This woman is getting access to, and I don't want to give any too much spoilers, but she's getting access to parallel versions of herself and also getting access to the skills and pulling them to her current life. I think that's awesome. What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever worked with someone to help that happen? Or is it one of those things where like you're aware of it and like, have you ever like done that for somebody? Like, is that even possible?
I wanted to do it for myself. I wanted to, because like social media, like that's just not my jam. I may end up having to pay somebody to do this work. This is not my thing. So I thought there's a version of me out there who's a total nerd and he knows how to do all of this stuff. How can I grab that version? And what I could find that version of me, but I couldn't necessarily grab the skills. What I could grab was the concept that it wasn't that hard. I can grab there's another version of me that is a badass bee. Is much more confident than I am, and also very, very pretty. I've kind of gotten a good picture of her. I can grab her confidence, her poise, and her sense of entitlement, which I kind of need sometimes because I have a sense of not being entitled to things that sometimes isn't exactly healthy. But yeah, you can't necessarily grab those video editing skills because I wanted that. That's what I wanted. But you can grab the confidence or the energy of it or the expectation that you can do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I can totally give respect to the challenge of just snatching that because there's a reason you'll just destroy the balance of this life versus that life. So you're going to bleed walls, and I can see that getting a little messy.
Right. And in spirit, your higher self is going to kibosh that if you ever got close to actually doing any damage. So don't worry about it. Trust me, higher self is in charge. So they're going to put a stop to that, pull that cord before you got anywhere near danger zone.
All right. So let's go crazy.
Okay, let's go crazy. Have some fun. It's fun.
Let them pull the cord, and not like the main cord, but the access cord.
Yeah, I want some of what she's having. I want some of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, so you help people with all this stuff. And it seems like a lot of your sessions with people is like pretty much helping them bridge that gap, just like you did, correct?
Yeah, I work on a lot of very practical problems too, right? A lot of people, particularly around the holidays, I have to get on a plane. I got to fly somewhere to go see Granny, but they're afraid to get on the plane. Easy. I mean, that's honestly just like a quick fix. Please don't
Yeah.
suffer with that. Just it doesn't have to be me. Go to somebody for that. That's such an easy fix. But ordinary problems. Another thing that happens a lot, and because I was in sales, I understand this problem really well, is that salespeople a lot of times can't seem to get past a certain number. Like if there's a quota, they're supposed to make 60,000, let's just say 60,000 a month in sales. They can't seem to get past 58, and they'll do stuff. They'll get close and then they'll sabotage it. So they never hit the number. That is actually kind of a psychological block. And it also is something fairly easy to fix. So I would, even the most new, call me if you want to, but even the most new hypnotherapist can kind of work through the idea of just expanding that limiting belief, because that is a whole series of limiting beliefs around money that are usually passed down from generation to generation, and they need to go. So they're interfering with whatever it is you're trying to create.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're passing it to your kids. Let's put a stop to that stuff.
Yes, I do believe that. And there's like this undercurrent of energy that subconsciously you repeat a lot of your parents' mistakes.
Hello. Yeah.
I've recently learned that through an interview, and then also just self-reflection, right? Meditation. You learn a lot. I do want to get into strategies, but before we get into strategies on helping the listeners, get their mindset into more prosperity and financial freedom, I want to talk about your funny story.
Oh.
So you were like asking me about the time where I decided I was either a bit racist or a bit of an idiot, which is, I'm like, this is going to be gold.
Oh, yeah. So I had a girlfriend who wanted me to see her husband. I think it was fear of flying. It was something ordinary like that. And my good friend is as lily Norwegian butt white all over as I am. So I assumed that her partner would be too. So I walk into the lobby and there's straight people there, and I'm looking around, and it's got to be the white dude. And John, I can't remember the guy's name, John. And he, a very, very tall African-American man stands up and says, "I'm John." And I look at him and he says, "Am I not what you expected?" And I'm like,
you had the face.
I'm like trying not to be too much of an idiot. And I said, I thought you'd be taller. I mean,
that's the best that came out.
It was like, I could have said so many other really, really bad things. I thought you'd be white, but I thought you'd be taller. And anyway, we had this amazing session, but I kind of at the end of the session wondered, am I a racist or just an idiot? And I'm like, maybe sometimes a little bit of both. I don't know. I don't think I'm racist, but I do believe in life that at some point all of us are idiots. And that particular day I proved it. But yeah, it was funny.
I can only imagine when you go into sessions, you have no idea what you're running into. You see an alien and you're like, all right, let's work with it, right?
Yes,
like at this point, it's not weird anymore.
No, not really. I mean, honestly, for some people say to me, I'm going to tell you a story that's going to seem a little weird. I'm like, trust me, it's fine. Every once in a while they do. And I go, well, yeah, that one really is kind of weird. But no, normally not much falls into the weird category in my office anymore.
What would be considered weird for you? Like, is there a recent weird, without giving anybody's, personal stuff up?
I don't know if this falls under weird or ungrounded, but I have a decent chunk of people call or send me emails saying, I went to a psychic and they told me that I am the reincarnation of Freya or God or Lakshmi. I just need you to confirm that for me. And I'm like, no, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't think you're particularly grounded is not an answer that you can give to someone you don't, because maybe I'm wrong, right? I will say something like, I'm not qualified to certify you as God.
Right.
But that one does qualify for me. And those of you who have seen cult shows, you've seen plenty of examples of people who genuinely, firmly believed that they were an incarnation of goddess and, got followers to follow them. I am not of the camp that if that person really did come to Earth, that she would be asking for your credit card, first thing, right? So that's just my flaw, and I'm happy to be wrong, but that's just my thinking that Jesus is not going to come down and say, "Hey, I accept PayPal."
Right. um, Going into that, actually, I just want to follow up on that before we move on. Um, what do you think is actually going on when multiple people claim to be someone famous in a past life?
I have seen this a lot, actually. A lot of times when people come in for past life regression therapy, it's in response to some documentary that was on TV. I cannot tell you. Josh Gates did something on Genghis Khan, and I had like 3 dudes come in the next week who thought they were Genghis Khan.
Wow.
I do think that a lot of these very famous people have large entourages. And I do think it's decent to assume, fair to assume that, thousands of people interacted with this person. Maybe the person thought that they were them because they could see things that were legitimately part of that person's household. They've had visions of that. I also think a lot of it is, and I fall victim to this too. I feel really small. Some people feel really small or not significant or not powerful in the world. And they want to believe that at some point in their history, they were powerful and important. I must have been Genghis Khan. I must have been Queen Elizabeth. It's kind of the joke in the hypnotherapy community. They're either Queen Elizabeth or Cleopatra.
Yeah, I've heard that one a lot. Yeah.
Oh my God. Cannot tell you how many times I've gotten emails about that. So far, neither of those people have shown up at my office. I'm just going to say, but I think it is our human instinct to want to be more powerful than we really are, and having visions of times when we were, and attributing that to somebody who's branded, somebody whose name we can mention. A lot of nobility in the past are not household names. If you were part of the Norwegian royal family in a past life, that name is not going to be in your mind if you're an American citizen, right? You might know the British royal family, probably not going to know the Norwegian or Swedish or any of these other communities or Prussian, right? But that's my theory. I'm happy to be wrong, but that's my theory. I think people just want to feel more powerful than they really are in this lifetime. And I would encourage you, if you're feeling that way, find ways to feel more powerful. Start your own YouTube channel, start a business. I mean, my goodness, let yourself be the center of attention in a healthy way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good segue into getting into that I want to get into some strategies. I know you helped a lot of people. You had a lot of really good conversations with people. How can what's some really good tips on someone being able to just move their mind towards that prosperity, that financial freedom? Because we're in a, like you said earlier, an economy currently as of like December 2023, there's a lot of uncertainty. And especially for people that are looking to move out of their career, they might be hesitant to jump ship or start doing something extra just because it looks like everything's going to fail. Like what are some tips that someone can do mentally to kind of move into that like prosperity, financial freedom mindset?
First of all, now is the time to start a business, because if you can figure out how to make coin when there's not as much coin around, that business is going to be 10 times more prosperous when things improve. So Start it now. I really mean it. I mean it, because learning how to do things on the cheap is a skill. I would say also pay attention to numbers. A lot of our mind loves numbers. Like I used that example earlier of the sales number, but that's a real example. People have it in their head they can't make more than 110,000 in there, and they'll find ways to sabotage their life to keep them under that. Start by watching where that is showing up in your life. You can also use hypnotherapy to clear that number, but really being present to it is a very helpful thing. Also noticing where family of origin belief may be interfering. The whole concept of money not growing on trees, right? Money doesn't grow on trees unless you've got a pear tree and you're selling those pears. Then money does grow on trees. I would say surround yourself with people who make more money than you. I'm not saying diss your friends, but maybe your guy friends who are smoking pot every Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday night instead of reading Wall Street Journal might not be the ones who are going to give you the best financial advice. Read great books on the topic. I would highly recommend you educate yourself about how money works. Money is a really easy game to lose if you don't know how you're playing it. I would start with, and I know the book is dated, but if you haven't already read it, you should, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just to see the difference in the mindset. I'm not saying do what he did. I'm not saying doing that, but I'm saying the understanding of how your mindset needs to shift is really present in that book. I would also say, don't be afraid of starting a business. It is not mysterious. It is not this thing that only rich people do. I can guarantee you, my business, I started it with almost nothing. Like I bought, still have it, digital recorder as seen on Ghost Hunters, right? For $200, business license and fictitious business saying. And it was like, and we're talking about $50 plus the $200 for the digital recorder. Nothing. I started with nothing. And I turned it into something that now supports me. So
Awesome.
just start. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Is there what was the biggest challenge for you to get your business going?
The biggest challenge was understanding boundaries. I'm sure anybody who does anything woo-woo will understand this one. People feeling like they could text me at 3:00 in the morning. Oh my God, my husband hasn't come home. Is he cheating on me with my sister? I mean, no, that's not okay. But figuring out how do you create rules and boundaries to make sure that people don't think they can pester you all the time or cancel at the last minute with no consequences or, never show up for appointments and not expect to pay for them. That I would say was the biggest challenge for me personally, because I kind of had grown up with this idea that if you can say yes to someone's request, then you should. That's not always the healthy way to do it. People need to understand boundaries. People need to think of you with a level of respect. Think of you as like a doctor. You would never do that to your doctor. Your doctor would charge you many times over for a missed appointment. Trust me. Try it. See what happens. We don't try it, but you guys already know because people have done it. Right? You get charged. That was the biggest challenge.
And I can see that being a challenge because especially if you're in the industry of serving people, right? One-on-one coaching, counseling, and I think
very personal.
Yeah. And I think that is growing as a need, a lot of mental support, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going from a place of a lot of things are done for you in your job, your career, and then out on your own. It's like you're going into the open pasture and you don't know where the fences are. And then there's other cows and horses jumping the fence. I don't think cows can jump a fence, but it's really cool to think about it.
Yeah. I put that image in my mind. I like that image.
Right? That's a diesel cow.
I love that.
And I'm really trying to stay on the subject, but I'm thinking about, when it's okay. You're trying to sleep and you're thinking about cows jumping the fence or sheep. It's actually not cows, it's sheep, but my mind goes, insane. And think of cows jumping the fence. Like, what does that cow have to look like to be able to do that? Because they can barely get up when they fall.
Oh, I know. I'm going to be thinking about that all day, John. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
I'm going to make an image and I'll send it to you. And it's going to be,
I would love to see that.
Maybe that'll be the graphic for the episode. That'll be funny. And it'll
that
have
would be
nothing
so
to do with
confusing.
the
It would be so confusing for people. What the heck is this? Parallel lives and I'm seeing a cow? You mean am I a cow in another life? No, by the way, in case you're asking that question, you are not.
Oh, has there ever been someone who was an animal in their past life?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it doesn't exist. I'm going to say that it doesn't, but that wouldn't necessarily be helpful for the person in front of me. So their spirit guides are not going to say, "Hey, show them a time when they were a rat," because that's going to be really interesting information. Like, no, they're going to show them a time when they've got a problem that they're dealing with now and how they managed it then and how you can do it better this time. That's what'll show up in a session.
Which is very good. Very good. It's not going to be just a random animal just eating grass.
Not helpful. No therapeutic value to that. Right. And your spirit knows that. Your spirit guides know that.
That's hilarious. And it's cool. It's like the system knows what to do and knows that there's an opportunity for someone to help that person. So then things bleed through that are necessary. And I love that. That's pretty cool. So as we get to a close, I want to give you a chance to share what you're working on. I know you've written a couple books. You're doing a lot of really cool stuff. What are you working on that you feel that people can take advantage of?
So I have a book. You can go on Amazon. I'm just going to shameless plug. Here's the cover. Love it. Jill K. Thomas, because there is also another author named Jill Thomas. The High Income Healer is really all of the advice that I was giving my clients. So people are coming in all the time. How do you start a hypnotherapy business? And I would tell them, and I'm like, you know what? One of these days, you just write all this stuff down. And then they could just buy it for like $4.99 on Kindle. And then I wouldn't have to have the conversation. I could just say, read the book. And then I will just tell you the things that are not in the book. So I have 3 books. It's a lot of work to buy a book. If you're thinking of writing a book, just understand that. It's a lot of work. It's even more work to sell it. But I've got a YouTube channel called New Business for business owners. And I'm always like working on projects right now. I'm also working on a book. Emotional eating and emotional spending are kind of the same problem. So I'm working on a book with exercises on how to heal both of those problems. Because a lot of times when people are trying to lose weight, they get in debt because they're not really dealing with the problem. They're just dealing with a symptom. And then another symptom shows up in a bigger way. So I'm working on that. But yeah, for now, that's not going to be, that's something like a year. Just be honest, probably a year. But for now, you can go and get the High Income Healer, how to turn your healing gift into a fulfilling full-time business right now.
That's perfect. It's a perfect title too. It's like,
I know.
You're like, okay, yeah, this is what I want. And you can, that's cool. And yeah, I do know people that help people publish books. And I know a friend that just announced that he finished the book, and that's challenging and time consuming. And that shows that there's a lot of diligency, a lot of consistency in your background. So that does say a lot. So
is your friend going to try and sell it to publishers?
I have no idea.
Okay, so if he does, you just go get a fifth of vodka, keep it in the cabinet, because he's going to be depressed from all the rejection letters he gets. No, I'm just saying. Everybody gets a ton of them. I'm just saying. I'm not saying
just a fifth of
I don't know, get a couple of gallons. But he's going to come over, crying. Just let him know that Jill said that's part of the process, and it's okay. Somebody doesn't mean people don't love you. That's
funny. I will. Thank you.
If he decides to go that route, he probably will self-publish, which I think is wise.
Oh, that's cool. I can totally see you doing a video on just like your journey on writing books.
Yeah, I might get in trouble because I did get one of my books picked up by a publisher, and it didn't go as well as I would have liked. And it's not because they did anything wrong. They kind of did, but let's not go there. It's more that I'm a bit of a control freak, and I turned over control of something I care about to someone else. And if you're a control freak, that's not the best thing to do.
Got it. Well, I think we spoke about a lot of really cool stuff today, and there's a lot to take from this. I really appreciate you coming out to the show. This was awesome. I definitely want to stay connected. Thanks for coming on.